Welcome to AI for Everyone, the podcast that demystifies artificial intelligence and makes it useful to teachers, students, employees, small business owners, administrators, and lifelong learners. I'm your host, Brett Hanson, a 25-year veteran teacher with years of experience exploring, implementing, and teaching AI to people of all ages. As a Google and ISTE educator, I'm here to help you navigate this quickly changing world with confidence. So whether you're new to AI or ready to level up, you're in the right place. Let's get started. A core part of the mission here at AI for Everyone is to move beyond the headlines and expert panels to hear from and share with everyone, or at least as many everyday AI users as possible. People just getting started, people on their way to a new level, and people who are really good at AI or know a lot about it. To truly understand what's happening with artificial intelligence, we need to listen to the voices of educators, professionals, students, critics, technicians, and experts who are navigating the shift in real time. So this show aims to be a platform for those stories and ideas, because that's how we learn what's really working, what isn't working, and how we can better understand and shape our AI future. That's exactly why I'm so excited about today's guest. I'm thrilled to welcome an expert teacher and curriculum director who also happens to be a great servant to his community. Dylan Zaleski serves as the K-12 District Assessment Coordinator and Curriculum Support Specialist for Southern Door County School District and has recently completed his Master's in Educational Leadership. This means he's one of the key people shaping what and how students learn and ensuring that the curriculum is effective and that assessments are meaningful. His work involves managing the district's academic standards, professional development, and the entire system of educational support for students. What makes this conversation so timely is that people in roles like Dylan's are bravely riding that first wave of the biggest educational shift in generations. They are the ones tasked with figuring out how to responsibly and effectively integrate powerful new AI tools into the classroom. They have to balance the incredible potential of AI with the practical realities of teaching and standards while being aware of the complex politics of local school systems, all while staying focused on what's best for students. Dylan, welcome to AI for Everyone. It's great to have you here. I hope I didn't scare you off with that intro. How are you doing today?
No, not at all. Thank you for having me, Brett. I'm doing well. We're in the heat of summer. We've had a few hot days in the Green Bay, Door County area, but I'm happy to be talking with you today.
Now, for everyone's knowledge, since this is our first guest discussion, I should explain that we'll break the discussion into two parts, AI in general, and then a specific topic. Today, our specific topic will be the effect of AI on jobs and the role education plays in this massive shift. But first, Dylan, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what got you into your profession and what you basically think about AI?
Yeah, so I grew up in Stratford, Wisconsin, which is a small town between Wausau, Marshfield, and kind of Stevens Point, right in the middle of the state. I went to Stevens Point, UW Stevens Point after high school. I knew from an early age I wanted to be a teacher and for sure a football coach. I was lucky enough to play for a really good program and really had some really strong male mentors growing up, so I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I picked English because, to be honest with you, that's what my high school football coach chose. I realized really quickly that there's a challenge that presents with that, which is the amazing balance of trying to grade papers while also having to get to practice and watch film. Those first couple of years, it was a lot of late nights and a lot of hours, just like most teachers experience, and I honestly wouldn't trade those first couple of years for anything. Fully immersive experience into the world of education is really what builds a strong foundation. For me, those first couple of years right out of college were, although a lot of work, really impactful. I started at Southern Door. I taught here for 4 years, and then I taught at Denmark for a year and came back to Southern Door in this curriculum role as part of what my end goal was with going to grad school, which is already the job I'm currently doing. So I was really blessed in that way. As you mentioned, I just graduated from Viterbo University this summer. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about your first meaningful AI experience, whether it was good or bad, but what was the first meaningful AI experience you had?
The last year I was teaching at Denmark, and I had a student that wrote an essay for me. And as you can imagine where this is going, I was like, I don't know if this was something you wrote. I reached out to mom and dad, and they actually were pretty open about, yeah, we had them use ChatGPT for their essay. And so that was the first time I realized that this is relevant to me. I'd heard about AI tools and I'd heard about ChatGPT, and it was really eye-opening for me to realize, like, no, this is going to impact everything we do, not just at the collegiate level, but in the K-12 district. So that was when I first started thinking, and I was on a data team, and I remember thinking, like, we need something systemic in terms of guidelines because this is not this student's work, and the parents didn't seem to see anything wrong with it. The student didn't even really know what was in the paper that they turned in. So I thought to myself then, we need something systemic. Fast forward to this job, I didn't really touch AI for the first probably 5 to 6 months of the role, but I attend monthly curriculum director meetings in the CISA 7 area, and it continuously came up. And it wasn't in a negative way. It was just like, here's this amazing tool. Here's this amazing tool. A very quick example, Act 20 is a new elementary literacy law. One of the AI tools that we talked about at length in our curriculum director meetings that really got my attention was Project Read, which allows you to generate codable passages for kids, which kind of plays into the Act 20 law and things that you're expected to do now. And that was when it started to click with me that, okay, that experience I had as a sixth grade teacher is just kind of showing up again. Like, whether I want to ignore this or not, this is going to be something that's a part of our lives going forward. And it can be used. That was the first experience was negative. This one, I would say, this experience with Project Read AI and the monthly curriculum director meetings was my first positive experience where I was like, oh, this is actually really beneficial. And it sort of like when you're an English teacher, you're just curating what are the best possible sources and what are some sources that aren't relevant or useful to you. And so that's what really got the ball rolling in my head, that this is something that, whether we like it or not, is going to be relevant to us.
So from your perspective as a former classroom teacher and now a relatively new curriculum director, what are the biggest misconceptions that you'd like people and possibly teachers and other administrators to think about, to know in regards to AI in the classroom?
The biggest thing is that it's not, I've heard this a couple times, like, it's just Google on steroids, which is kind of the cliche thing to say. It's a lot more than that, integrated to everything we do. It's not just another search engine. There are AI tools that can really impact students and staff positively. It's just a matter of curating the best and the way to approach it from a systems lens. So for me, the biggest misconception is that it's just Google on steroids and that people will think this might remove critical thinking skills. I actually think if you have experience with it, you'll realize it requires some pretty strong critical thinking skills in order to use the technology effectively. And I'm not talking about just writing effective prompts. There's so many different aspects to artificial intelligence that really require strong critical thinking skills. And another misconception is just that people think AI will take over the world and rule us. It's sort of like, I'm not a baby boomer, but if you're a person that recalls the space race back in the day, to me, it's like we're kind of at that point where it's like, you know, launching into space is not a dangerous thing. It's more of an intellectual race. And we just want to make sure that as a country, we're kind of at the forefront. And so if you're afraid of it, I understand, but it's one of those things where we should harness that tool and the knowledge that we have now discovered as a society in order to keep us moving forward.
It's becoming more and more clear that these positive possibilities are the other side of the real negative possibilities as well. With the space race analogy, that's a great analogy. It did foster and promote a lot of technology that wound up being used in warfare and other things. So there are these dangerous sides, but we can emphasize the positive and move forward in regards to critical thinking. And then it's going forward. So we got to move forward with it.
Exactly. The way I look at it is, it's an intellectual race, and would you rather be first or last? I would say we should try to be first.
So that leads to this next question about excitement or concern. It seems to me that you're more excited than concerned, and that's a good thing. If you are more excited than concerned, what are you most excited about? And if you're more concerned, what are you most concerned about?
I'm most excited about the fact that effective integration of some of these tools can really streamline some of our staff, and not just in the education world, but streamline people's lives. I'm not saying it's going to replace hard work. Hard work and intellection are the reason we have these kinds of tools, so I don't think it will ever be replaced. But there are things in every job that we have to do that sort of bog us down. AI is not going to take those things from us and do them for us, but they can help. And I think that's the thing I'm most excited about is we have things in our jobs we do every day that can slow us down or make us feel like, oh, this is a grind. Do not take that away from us, but they can actually make the process more enjoyable. The way it can be integrated into some of those mundane tasks not only allows you to think critically about some of those tasks, but it also is kind of like a thought partner in some of those things. And so what I found is like for some of the stuff I have to do, using it in a way that almost excites me a little bit more about doing those things is what I found to be the most beneficial. And it hasn't replaced any of my work, that's for sure, but it's enhanced my ability to think about those things and do them more
Yeah.
effectively. And then you also asked what keeps me up at
Well,
night.
you of course.
Okay. I would say I'm still a little bit concerned. I do have questions about what this will look like in 20 years. I just think about people that are using it effectively and people that are not using it effectively or responsibly. After 20 years of not using it responsibly, what will some of the drawbacks be? And so that's something I always wonder. Because as you know, not everybody's going to approach this with a responsible, ethical lens.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why the education is so important. I firmly believe it has to start young. The reason why I believe we need to get AI instruction into the schools early isn't so much so that young kids are using AI the way maybe high school students should, and certainly I think adults need to learn how to do, but so that they understand things. We did a really poor job with social media. We did I think, relatively poor job with understanding what was going to happen with the internet coming into schools and becoming such a pervasive thing in our life. And if we don't do a better job with AI, I think the consequences will be worse. I think that it will intensify inequalities and create a lot of problems that, we really, really don't want to have to deal with later.
Well, and that's the key is if from an education standpoint, if we can get ahead of the game with the internet, I, we're always playing catch up with that kind of stuff, and it would be nice in this case because it's so different and so unique that we get ahead
Yeah.
of the ball game a
Yeah,
little
it's
bit.
imperative. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of my mantras, one of the things that I talk about a lot when I'm trying to help people move forward with AI is the essences. And they are basically experience, confidence, and then what's called AI taste. And so from my perspective, experience builds skills, and then those skills together with that experience lead to more confidence. Confidence mixed with those skills leads to the beginning of what's called AI taste. And then from there, people can really start to feel what AI is about and start to develop informed decisions. There's so many people who are saying, oh, AI is not as good as they say, it's not doing well, it doesn't work. So tell us about a specific experience, either yours or a colleague's, where an AI tool led to new skill that built your confidence.
So I have two quick examples. The first one will be really quick. Using NotebookLM, which allows you to upload PDFs and basically turn them into an AI generated podcast. I used that this year briefly for an aspect of something I was doing, and the people I was working with were blown away. And this is sort of a different example, but if you can if you can take that next step and say to the generator, whether it be Google Gemini or ChatGPT, that's like the next step because that's often what comes up is, well, I don't know where they're getting this stuff from or the resources they're using, I don't necessarily agree with. You can actually focus those. So, for example, this was during one of my last grad school classes. And by the way, this came up a lot in my grad school classes. A university that I went to is sort of very old school in a lot of ways, and almost every single one of my classes had an aspect of artificial intelligence involved. So I was in my, pro seminar, which was our last full week of class, and I was focusing prompts and doing some things like only pull from this source, really learning how to focus a prompt
Mhm.
effectively. And so I'm also really interested in history and military history and things like that. And so just for my own enjoyment, I said, create a list of veterans who battled cancer in their lifetime, specific to military servicemen who served during the invasion of Iraq. And so doing that, I actually used the deep research tool on Google Gemini. It pulled only from online obituaries and it provides all the sources. So I checked them all and they were all legitimate online obituaries. And it gave me a percentage of the deceased veterans who had battled cancer in their lifetime. Now, if I'm a scientist and I'm trying to pull data on a specific area to learn more about what those veterans faced, just trying to, maybe I can find a common thread of chemicals or materials. This allowed me to do that. That's when I was like, okay, it built my confidence in that I don't have to just say, type in a prompt and it pulls from wherever and I have no control over that. This was a very focused, I want you to pull only from this set of sources, and it did so effectively. That's when I was like, okay. Uh, That's when I got more into basically saying or controlling the prompt to pull only from where I wanted it to pull from. And that's when I was like, this can be really
Yeah.
beneficial.
And the next step after that for people who are interested in those types of things are to create either your own custom gems in Gemini where you can be even more specific, or custom GPTs that can be shared with people, or ChatGPT's folders, which are basically like a custom GPT. It's just only for you. So for a history teacher, for a small business owner, these steps are big. Now, speaking of small business owners, we're going to shift now to part two, which is about the economy and jobs. And so we're seeing all kinds of evidence that AI is affecting the job market without a doubt. And some people are arguing that it's sort of a reshuffle with some job cuts, and some CEOs and corporations and think tanks are arguing there are going to be massive layoffs. I think it's probably going to be somewhere in the middle. I mean, Goldman Sachs has talked about 300 million jobs globally being either lost or transformed to the point where people either have to retrain or they'll find somebody else. Those are pretty big numbers, seem like the extreme end, but there's no doubt that AI is changing jobs. And as educators, this is really, really important for us. So how should K-12 education respond to prepare students for a world where they will likely have to collaborate with AI in order to have a career and then to be able to shift to a new type of job? What do you think schools should do?
It's a AI literacy. I think it's from a K-12 perspective, AI literacy is really important. This is no different than when the internet came around. I remember it briefly. I was young, so I remember a slow integration, and by the time I got to high school, it was fully integrated. I just think it's AI literacy. If we don't train students on how to be effective AI literate
Yeah.
students, we're doing them a disservice. If we're talking about preparing graduates for being the most prepared for the world, this cannot be ignored. It would be doing a disservice to our students if we didn't prepare them for this. Although it's the scary thing is it's changing every day, and so as you know, education and a lot of other fields move really slow.
Yeah.
So for us, it's unique for us to have to play catch up and move so fast. But I do think if we don't have anything, and if we're not being responsive to what is out there, we would be sending our students into a world that either is very there's a lot of disillusionment. You get into the job, you're expected to do this job, and you're expected to be proficient in this tool or this aspect of your job, which you had been quote unquote doing by hand. I don't want to send kids into a job or into college without those skills because that's our job is to prepare them for the world.
Yeah.
So whether we like it or not, we have
Yeah,
to.
I listened. This was about a month ago. Ezra, maybe 6 weeks ago. Ezra Klein's podcast. He had one on education, and he made a statement that at times I haven't wanted to fully agree with, but in all reality, this is the way most parents think about school. He said that he wants his kids to have extracurriculars and he wants his kids to have enrichment things, but ultimately, what most parents think about school is that school should prepare kids to have a good job. to have a career, to build a family, to do all that. And, AI is becoming an essential tool. I recently, actually just yesterday, heard that Microsoft is laying off 1,200 employees. And the CEO told the rest of the employees, the ones that weren't laid off, you better develop your AI skills or you will be replaced or simply let go. More and more companies are talking about this. And the other component with this is that there's a huge potential pay boost for people who are AI skilled. The wage premium is estimated at about 56% increase for people who are upskilled. And we don't really want to talk about the billions of dollars that are being spent for AI promoters right now, but this does mean that public education has to do something. So, what specific skills do you think we should focus on in addition to AI? So, which human skills are most important to go with these AI technical skills and this AI literacy?
Well, to me, it starts with digital citizenship, which actually plays a lot into ethics,
Yeah,
responsibility, social emotional learning, which are required state standards for us in the state of Wisconsin. This is an opportunity for us to teach ethical use of a product and ethical use of the tools we have available to us. And just to jump back just a little bit to what you were
sure.
saying, the employees with Microsoft, I'm sure all of those people that work there know how to use ChatGPT and Google Gemini, but they don't have the integrated,
Right.
like they know how to type in a prompt and get an answer. But the difference is digital citizenship, ethical use, and also curating the responses and controlling what you mentioned, custom GPTs. And that's that's the taste you were talking about that they're asking
Yeah.
for. We're already past the point where people can just type in a prompt and say, all right, give me something. But what they're talking about is true AI literate employees. Going back to what our job is, it's really important that we don't just say, type this in the chat and see what you get. It's a more comprehensive approach to making sure that our students are AI literate so that that doesn't happen to them one day down the
Yeah.
road. And you mentioned like personal skills, it just to me it goes back to ethical use. That's what our job is, to teach ethics and to be responsible and to teach responsibility. This is a tool that is very powerful and needs to be taught responsibly.
It's definitely. And it needs to be done wisely, considering what our students need. I've been a teacher since last century. I was teaching at the end of 1999. And so I've seen a lot of changes. And one of the biggest things is these changes are happening faster than ever. So we've always been slow to change. I mean, I think to the point of problematically slow to change, but now the stakes are even higher. And from the beginning of my research in AI in education, I think this applies to everyone, but it definitely applies to education. It's the issue of inequality. So last week, I talked about Karen Howe's book, The Empire of AI. And inequality between the global north and the global south is a huge issue. But within the United States and our education system, the inequality for AI instruction and AI tools and AI development is going to be the next issue, the next inequality issue. So, what do you think about our social responsibility to make sure kids in rural schools, kids in poor schools, those students also have AI instruction?
So I think it can be a challenge because certain rural schools even have issues with Wi-Fi in the student's home. The thing is, if we're if we're expecting students to compete with other students or collaborate with other students at the collegiate level in the workforce after they leave us, it would be really important that we ensure they have the skills that a student at a bigger, let's say, urban district has. So to me, it's really important that we use the Google Workspace. We train students on how to curate for effective responses, but also, how to check bias, ensure that the information you're getting is not just ensuring that the sources your AI source is pulling from are checking for bias. So, to me, it's so comprehensive that it's hard to pinpoint like a couple things. If we're effectively integrating artificial inequality should be one of the things we at the forefront of what we're teaching and how to curate for. It's important that if this, the perception sometimes can be at a rural school, kids don't have equal access to everything. And I just think that's total baloney and has all the opportunities and knowledge that any kid in any other district could.
Yeah, I think that the statistics seem to be showing that as a nation, we are not. One of the first eye-popping statistics I remember reading last year, at the beginning of last school year when I was pushing for more AI in schools, is that suburban districts were training their teachers to use and train students with AI at a 50% higher rate than rural districts. And that I think a lot of that goes back to cultural issues. It goes to resources. They have more money. And I really think that this is something that people like you and I will be tackling and addressing as we move forward, because everything about learning AI, in my experience, is harder if you don't have that foundation, if you don't have some understanding of what it means to talk about AI ethics. What does it mean to have AI confidence or AI taste? And just like with anything else, it grows from experience. And I think that we'll do a good job with that. Now, the last thing I wanted to ask you is anything that you want to talk about in regards to AI at all? Comments to parents, concerns, anything that you want to share as we wrap up here?
Just that, I really wish this was and I think it is. I just hope that everybody understands that this is a collaborative effort. This is not like I'm the AI guy trying to make my brother jump into ChatGPT even if he doesn't want to. This is going to be a part of our lives, and so why not teach it ethically, and why not prepare our kids and prepare employees and prepare everybody so that you mentioned Goldman Sachs 300 million layoffs or whatever. Kids are not one of them, because if we're talking about AI literate students and kids, I'd imagine they'd find a place for them to work. And I'm not talking about the ability to type in a prompt effectively. I'm talking about the full-on taste.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing I would ask about.
No, but
the other thing I would ask about, and I don't know, Brett, if you know anything about this, but I've been really fascinated with the new information regarding quantum computers. And the way I just really quickly could explain it. And if you could think about, imagine your regular computer, like the computer I'm looking at right now, is a library with a single librarian. And every time you ask a question, the librarian has to go through each row and find a book, read it, and then tell you the answer. It happens, the process basically when you're using our computers happens one step at a time in a very specific order. A quantum computer is like a magic library where every book is already open to every possible page at the same time. So when you ask a question, you're not just getting one answer from the book, you're getting a massive range of possible answers. And, when you talk about a global geopolitical aspect, this is like one of the things at the forefront of, if you're going back to the space race thing, if we want to compete, this is like one of the most important things happening at the forefront of technology right now. So this means for certain complex problems, a quantum computer can literally find the answer like that. And things that you would never expect it to do. It uses things called qubits, and it's just fascinating.
Following quantum computing for a while, I know that IBM is the leader in quantum computing in the United States. I'm assuming that people in the European Union and in China are diving in as deeply as we are here in the United States. But quantum computing is going to be, I think, the tool that's used to jump from general intelligence, or AGI, which is when an AI is smarter than almost all humans, or all humans in almost all intellectual tasks. I think we're close, very close. And if you piece it all together, from my perspective, from my view as this human, we are there. It's smarter than me, without a doubt. Intelligence is that jump to AI that is thinking in ways that humans have not thought, in systems that they have not thought. So mathematical systems that nobody has invented yet. All of our mathematical systems were invented by people. There are a lot of other possible mathematical systems that AI will invent when it gets to superintelligence, and different ways of scientific calculations. Superintelligence is going to be essential for space travel, which will happen. And we will be going to other places, or at least on long journeys in spacecraft, and maybe Elon Musk will make it happen with Mars. Quantum computing is going to be the key for superintelligence, and IBM is leading the charge. The last time I checked, they had a quantum computer that was functioning with 10 qubits. And a qubit is
Wow.
a processing measurement beyond regular computing expectations. I loved your analogy about the magic library where all the books are open all at the same time and the librarian can point.
And it's hard for us to even conceptualize something.
It really is. So I think quantum computing is going to be a huge jump, and it's not something that's coming in the future. We have quantum computers ready yet, but I think, especially now with the speeding up of AI, I think within 5 years, 10 at the most, I'm thinking probably within 5, there will be quantum computers working on health issues. They'll be solving cancer problems, all that kind of stuff. And so I hope.
I mean, if you think about cell phones in the early 1990s compared to today, look at that jump, right?
And
if we think about quantum computing today compared to 20 years from now, I can't even fathom.
Yeah, well, one thing that has played out again and again this century is that we make predictions based on our view of reality faster. Climate change is happening faster than anybody thought. AI is happening way faster, and so will quantum computing. So maybe
things like simulating how atoms and molecules interact, like a quantum computer can. They're already finding ways that it can help us design super efficient solar panels and life-saving drugs. And I don't think we can quite conceptualize all the different things it can do for us.
It's true. And I mean, the fastest computers with all of the GPU processors, I mean, some of these companies are putting together like 10,000 GPUs into one computer to do enormous tasks. They're already doing the protein folding of AlphaFold and this kind of stuff. And when you add quantum computing to it, it's going to accomplish things that, like you said, we can't even imagine. So, and maybe
I lean positive.
Yeah, maybe in about a year we can talk about what's happening with the first quantum computer, and I'll have you back on the show for that.
Right.
That would be great.
Right.
Dylan, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate all you do as an educator. It's a hard job. Good luck with all your future endeavors.
Thank you, Brett. Thanks for having me on. I would just say closing, it's something, again, we all have to look at together. Pushing of an agenda, we prepare everybody for using these tools effectively. It would be like, if we ignored it, it would be like ignoring the internet in the early 2000s. We would be doing a disservice to people.
Thanks for spending time with me today on AI for Everyone. I hope this episode gave you something useful to think about or something new to try. If you enjoyed it, please tell your peers and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. You're also invited to join the Hanson Education Services newsletter, where I share bonus tools, practical teaching ideas, real-world AI examples, and curated updates to help you stay ahead in the world shaped by AI. To learn more or to connect with me directly, visit HansonEducationServices.com. That's where you'll find all the podcast links, resources, and more ways to grow your AI confidence. Thanks again, and remember, the most important 21st century skill is to always learn how to keep learning.